One question that people love to ask me is about boundaries. And they always ask me, what do I do? How do I set boundaries? Because let's be clear, if you're a high achieving individual, more than likely you're really good at doing things for others and you're really good at saying yes, but you may not be as good at saying no. I think we need to talk about that, shall we? Okay. So here's the thing about boundaries, right? It's so easy for people to say, "Oh, you need to set boundaries. You need to set boundaries." How many of you have heard people say you need to set boundaries? If you've heard that, then you need to tap that subscribe button if you haven't already, and then hit that bell, and then drop me a comment. Just put yep in the comments, like, "Yeah, I've been told that I need to set boundaries." But here's why setting boundaries is difficult. Because that's not all of it. Usually, when you're told to set boundaries, it gives you the idea that you need to set it and forget it. I'm like, it's not a rotisserie chicken. Y'all remember that commercial? Okay, great. It's not a rotisserie chicken. So one of the things over the years that I have taught clients to do is when you set boundaries, we activate and adhere to them. But there's a process to it, and I want to share that with you right now, okay? So if you like to take notes, great. Grab a pen, grab a piece of paper. If you don't like to take notes, just get really comfortable. And I'm going to say this again. If you're new to the channel, please make sure that you tap that subscribe button, if only because you like my blue lips and my head wrap. I don't know. I think I'm serving you African unicorn realness, and that's just how we're going to go with that. Anyway, back to setting boundaries. So here's the thing about setting boundaries. Usually when you're setting boundaries with people, let's just be clear about the fact that you may have attracted in somebody who might be a wee bit entitled. And so it is their joy from the core of their soul to breach your boundaries. That is what happens when you say, "Hey, I'm not doing this." And they either keep poking you to do it, or they try to manipulate you to do it, or they say the thing. What's the thing? "Oh, I'll just get somebody else to do it." Now, some of you are like, okay, right. But some of you are still new to this process of being high achieving and not people pleasing. It's a whole thing, right? And so you hear that and you're like, oh my God, they're gonna pick somebody else. And I'm like, yeah, this is the mind flip of the entitled, right? And so in that, you may say, "Hey, I'm not going to take calls after a particular time. Hey, I'm not going to do this after a particular time. I'm not going to be available for this." But somehow the thought of somebody else being available to do the thing is like, gasp. So this is what activating and adhering to boundaries looks like versus the set it and forget it model of boundaries. So first of all, we activate the boundary because we have thought through the whole scenario. Okay, we're setting this boundary because of this, in order to accomplish this, and these are the consequences for breaching it. Look, there's 3 things to this to activate the boundary. So you're literally flipping 3 different switches. Because of this, in order to accomplish this, and these are the consequences. So we're already doing more than just set it and forget it, right? Right. So then what happens? So then we adhere to it. And when we adhere to it, we basically say, "Listen, I've thought this thing all the way through." Because usually what happens in the set it and forget it piece is that you set it, somebody breaches the boundary, and you're like, "Oh my God, somebody's just breached my boundary." And I'm like, "Oh my God, they're entitled. That's what they're going to do." And so at the end of the day, if you think it all the way through, then you don't have to worry about trying to process being blindsided by that very, very entitled individual who is asking you for yet another favor. Another favor. And here's the thing, guys, entitled people actually don't ask for favors. They actually ask for actions. If you've ever been around people who are entitled, they ask for what they want, and they don't really care how insane it might sound, right? Like, "Hey, can you, I was wondering if you could, like, I was needing like $5,000, and will you give me $5,000?" Matters not that you've known this person maybe 60 days, but whatever, matters not that you've never given this person money. Yeah, some people are just bold, right? Some people are just bold, but they're entitled. So here's the thing about entitled people, right? They feel so entitled to what they want that if you don't give it to them, they're just going to go find somebody else to get it from. Shocking. I know, right? Okay, great. So let's keep going. So what else? What else is happening here? Well, when you're adhering to the boundary, you're saying things like, no, yeah, still not available. Yeah, still not going to be able to do it. But see, you're very clear in the fact that, you know what, my boundary has been breached. And so I have already in the activation stage said, if my boundary is breached, here are said consequences. Said consequences can be anything from not speaking to that person, letting them know that they breached your boundary and that won't be tolerated if they want to remain in relationship with you. It doesn't have to be ugly. Consequences makes it sound so dark. Duh, duh, duh. I'm like, no, you're not. You're there, but there are consequences. And so, like I said before, with set it and forget it, a lot of people, they set the boundary and then they're like, oh my God, somebody's breaching my boundary. I know. If you really like the way I animate the breaching of the boundary, hit the subscribe button and let me know that it's real. Okay. Okay. But in activate and adhere to, because you've thought it through, you're not only clear that there's a consequence when that boundary is breached, you're clear that more than likely the boundary will be breached. And so you act accordingly. Now, some people would say, okay, well, does activation have a communication component? It can. If you feel like you need to say to somebody, hey, listen, you know, the last time you called me after midnight to do X, Y, and Z, unfortunately, I'm just not going to be able to do that. I need to get my rest. Or better yet, unfortunately, I'm just not going to be taking calls after 12. I don't need to explain. It's my phone. If you find that the person that you need to communicate these boundaries with just doesn't listen, or they try to guilt trip you, or mind flip you, or both, then you can say nothing. Wait till the occurrence happens again, because guess what? It will happen again. Like, you can set a clock by it. I don't even have on a watch. It's skin 30. Anyway, so like I said, miss me with the set it and forget it, right? But don't miss me with that subscribe button. Miss me with the set it and forget it, but don't miss me with the activation and the adherence. Because here's the thing, guys. If you feel like you need to set a boundary, if you feel like someone is taking you for granted, or they're communicating with you or treating you in a way that is just not acceptable, you have every right to tell that person no, or no more. In fact, I dare tell you that one of the strongest things that you can do in your life is say no or no more and mean it. Because a lot of times we say no and we say no more. And the minute we kind of get blown off course because somebody says something crazy to us and it looks like they may not like us, then we change our minds. And I'm like, this is about you. This is the empowerment that I'm talking about, right? This is the empowerment that I'm talking about. So listen up. I got a question I'm a coach. I ask questions. So here's the question for you today. You ready? Who do I need to set a real boundary with? How do I activate it and adhere to it? Because we're not doing set it and forget it, right? So who do I need to activate? Let me rephrase it, guys. Who do you need to activate a boundary with and adhere to it? And remember, activation means you've thought it all the way through. So when that person decides to call you after a particular time, you're not going to answer the phone. Or if that person asks you for something that you're incapable of doing, such as, driving across town, and you don't want to drive across town, listen, you don't have to have any other reason to set a boundary and to activate a boundary than that you don't want to do it. And that may be shocking to some of you because you have created these connections that have a deep sense of obligation. You're the only one that's obligated. Okay. But that's your question, right? With whom do I need to activate a boundary and adhere to it? And you know what? Listen, it doesn't have to be harsh. It doesn't have to require some long text message about how you've thought about life and you've been reflecting and all of this. It really could be as simple as, I'm going to activate this boundary. I've thought it through. I know why I want it. I know what's going to happen if they breach it. Okay, great. And you can just go on with life. But I'm telling you, one of the most powerful things you can ever do, my high achieving love bucket. That's what I used to call my students. I'd walk in the classroom and just say, hello, love buckets. I know they thought I was insane, probably. Definitely. And so one of the most powerful things you can do is say no or no more and mean it. All right, that's all I got for that. So make sure you drop some comments. Let me know if this was meaningful to you. Did it help you in any way? Make sure you share this out because, you know, sharing is indeed caring. And if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you tap that bell. And I promise you'll get some fresh content coming in hot, right? So for those of you who don't know, my name is Stephanie D. McKenzie, and I created this channel to empower you. And here's the thing. I always want to remind you to always be your own superhero. And as I always do, I thank you guys so much for loving and learning with me. Have a beautiful day. Bye.